I just wanted to go over a few little things on your assignment, and it's easier, I think, if I make a video and I can show you as we're talking about it rather than trying to write to you and explain it. So I'm looking at question 4a, and there's a few just little technical problems here that we need to talk about. When you're testing your interval, first of all, you should show your work for how you got these values, okay? They are correct, but you should show your work for where they came from. And then when you test them, we're obviously looking for values here that are going to be greater than or positive or equal to 0. So we're looking for something that's positive or 0. And so you've got several times where you do end up with positive intervals. When you're writing this as a solution, as an interval, and you're using it as or you're showing it as a union of two sets, then you need to decide whether you're going to use round brackets or square brackets. Round brackets, what they mean is that you cannot actually have the value that you're showing, but you can have a value greater than that. If you use a square bracket, you're including that value as well as all values greater than that number. So you cannot use a round bracket and a square bracket in your interval. So what we need to decide here is whether or not it's more appropriate to use a round bracket or a square bracket. In this case, because it's greater than or equal to, then we should use the round bracket. And so with the negative infinity, we always use a round bracket anyway. You would never have a square bracket there. And so you're going to go from negative infinity up to 1. You're going to have a positive result there. Okay? So after that, the next time that you get a positive result is in between 2 and 4, I believe. And then you're testing at x equals 4, and you also got a positive result at x greater than 4 also. So it's positive really from 2 on, and that's what you're trying to show here. So if you do a union, 2 gives you a value of 0, and so we're going to use a square bracket. And sorry, my apologies, my mistake. Here, this should be minus 1. I read that wrong. And this should be a square bracket also, because minus 1 will give us this value of 0 exactly. And so we want to include the value minus 1. And so now we're going to go from 2 all the way up to positive infinity with a round bracket for infinity. And that's what your interval should look like for the solution of this one. The next thing that you need to do is go to your number line, and you need to put a solid circle above minus 1, because minus 1 is a solution. And then you need to show an arrow going to the left towards negative infinity, because all of those values will satisfy the equation. You need to do the same thing for positive 2. I think that says positive 2 on your number line. We're going to do a solid circle there, and we're going to draw an arrow going forward. All the way to positive infinity, and that's how you show the solution on a number line. Alright, so for question 4b, sort of along similar lines as 4a, sort of the same problems. With this question, we have just a less than, and the equal part is not included. And so the values that you find when you find your roots, and I like how you've shown your work here, the values that you find cannot be included, so we're going to have to use round brackets in our interval solution here. So you've tested here in your chart to find when it's equal to a negative value is what we're looking for, and it looks like this is the only place where you get a negative value for your solution. So that is actually not true. If you look at the column over here for x greater than 5, if we try a value of x greater than 5, so let's choose x equals 6, we are going to get minus 6 times 11 times 1, which is minus 66. So that gives us a value less than 0, doesn't it? And so here we want to put a negative for all values of x greater than 5. We also have a negative for values of x in between minus 5 and 0, as you've stated. And so this is not interval notation. You cannot use the greater than or less than signs in your interval. You can use numbers and commas only. So between minus 5 and 0, but not including minus 5 or 0, our solution would look like this. And then you're going to union that or join that with the solution of x greater than 5, which is 5, going all the way up to positive infinity. And we're using round brackets in both cases because 5 and 0 and negative 5 cannot actually be numbers that give you the correct solution. So it's only numbers greater than, or in this case, numbers in between those two values. Okay, so the next few questions were just great, but let's have a look at number 8 for a minute. And I think maybe you just didn't read things correctly. You've got here that you're dividing by minus 4, if I'm reading that correctly, and yet you substituted in a 1. If you're using factor theorem to find the remainder, you want to substitute in the minus 4, and then it tells us what the remainder is, if I've got that correct. Okay, I think I see what the problem is. You're missing something here. Is when it's divided by 1, the remainder is minus 4. So just the way that you've copied the question is making it look like you substituted the wrong number, but you actually did put the right number in. So when you get to the bottom of this one, and you're solving for f, it would be better to solve for f, and you end up with f equals 2k minus 7 here. Okay, so with the second part of it, 4k plus f equals 23, that's right.
I was expecting it to...
Okay, so I can see what you've done here. All right, so you've got the right line here in your solution. Everything is fine. Now when you try to solve for f, you could rearrange this as f equals 23 minus 4k, and then you could put this and this together and solve for k. It looks like you've done everything correctly until you got to this point here. When we're dividing both sides by 3, you want f equals 9 divided by 3, which is 3. So your point kf is really 5, 3. Okay? So that's just a minor little error there. So overall, there was a lot of concepts, a lot of information covered on this assignment, and you did quite a good job. I can see that you're understanding it quite well. It's just a few little minor things that I need for you to go back and look at before you move on to Unit 2. Now that you've completed this, if you could please email me with a date and time that would work for you for your Skype assessment on Unit 1, then that would be our next thing that we need to do before you move on to Unit 2. Okay, thanks.